When director Zack Snyder cast Ray Fisher as Cyborg, the plan was bold. A relatively unknown stage actor would become the emotional center of the Justice League. His story was supposed to be tragic, powerful, and unlike anything DC had put on screen before. But when Snyder stepped away and Joss Whedon took over, everything changed. Most of Fisher's scenes were cut, as his performance was reduced from centerpiece to afterthought. Not only that, but Fisher accused Whedon of abusive behavior on set, while Whedon claimed Fisher was just a bad actor. So how did a character meant to be the heart of the Justice League end up erased from DC's future? To find out, let's take a look at why Ray Fisher's Cyborg never got his own solo movie. Ray Fisher, a classically trained stage actor from Maryland, first earned attention on the stage, most notably for his portrayal of Muhammad Ali in Fetch Clay Make Man. When Zack Snyder cast him as Victor Stone for Justice League, Fisher had little film experience, but that was part of Snyder's vision. He wanted a fresh, unrecognizable face to bring Cyborg to life, someone who could become the character rather than carry baggage from past roles. Eager to catch up with Marvel, Warner Bros. Rushed Justice League into production, without first giving each hero their own solo film. That meant Cyborg's entire origin story had to be crammed into Justice League itself, leaving audiences to meet him for the first time in a team-up movie. In Snyder's original plan, Cyborg was meant to be the emotional centerpiece, tying the larger-than-life heroes to a deeply human story. Victor's arc explored his near-fatal accident, the loss of his mother, and his father's desperate decision to save him using alien technology. The plan was to then follow up the ensemble with a solo Cyborg movie, along with appearances in other DCEU projects. Cyborg had already made a brief cameo in BVS, but Justice League was expected to cement him as a breakout star. Warner Bros. Had big plans for him, and fans were eager to see a young black superhero placed front and center in the DC universe. Halfway through production of Justice League, tensions between Zack Snyder and Warner Bros. Over the tone of the film were already boiling. After the failure of BVS, the studio wanted to course correct and pushed Snyder to make a lighter, more comedic film, while Snyder fought to preserve his darker vision. In the middle of that clash, Warner Bros. Brought in Joss Whedon, fresh off his success with Marvel's first two Avengers films, to write new scenes and steer the tone closer to the Marvel formula. Then, tragedy struck. Snyder's daughter tragically passed away. Exhausted from battling the studio and devastated by personal loss, Snyder chose to step away from the film entirely, leaving Whedon to finish the project. What followed was less a continuation of Snyder's work and more of a rebuild. Whedon was tasked with cutting the runtime down to 2 hours, which meant large sections of Snyder's script were scrapped. Entire characters and arcs were reduced or removed, and months of reshoots reshaped the movie into something far lighter and quippier. The serious, character-driven tone Snyder had aimed for was replaced with awkward humor and quick pacing that often clashed with what had already been filmed. Cyborg's storyline was the biggest casualty, with nearly all of it stripped away. The football scenes that showed Victor as a rising athlete, cheered on by his mother while resenting his father's absence, were gone, erasing the glimpse of the life he lost. His mother Eleanor was cut out entirely, removing a crucial emotional anchor. Even his transformation into Cyborg, which should have been a tragic turning point, was reduced to a few rushed moments. Without these layers, Victor's grief, identity crisis, and fractured family dynamic disappeared, leaving him sidelined as little more than the team's tech support. When Justice League arrived in theaters, the results were obvious. The film felt uneven, the tone swung wildly, and characters like Cyborg were underdeveloped. Fans and critics quickly noticed the scenes of Cyborg from the trailer were completely absent from the final film. For Ray Fisher, who had been told his role would be the heart of the film, it was a crushing realization. His chance at a star-making performance had been carved down to scraps of the character he was brought in to embody. Not only that, but Fisher accused Joss Whedon of gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable behavior on set. He also said Warner Bros. Executives, including producer Jeff Johns and DC Films president Walter Hamada, had either ignored or enabled the misconduct. Fisher claimed Whedon belittled actors, gave dismissive notes, and rewrote the film in ways that erased Cyborg's importance. Scenes that explored Victor Stone's identity as a young black man were cut, stripping away the cultural depth Snyder had built into the character. He also alleged that studio executives made racially insensitive comments during editing, including remarks about Cyborg's skin tone appearing too dark in certain shots. Speaking out was a major risk. Fisher was still early in his career, and challenging one of Hollywood's biggest studios could have ended it, but he refused to stay quiet. On social media, he repeated a simple phrase: accountability is greater than entertainment, to make it clear that telling the truth mattered more to him than protecting his future. As the allegations grew, Warner Bros. Was forced to act. The studio launched an internal investigation, but it soon became messy. Executives announced that remedial action had been taken, though they never explained what it was. Fisher accused the process of being designed to protect executives rather than uncover the truth. Warner Media, meanwhile, publicly supported Walter Hamada, which only deepened Fisher's mistrust. In time, other cast members backed Fisher's account. Gal Gadot revealed that she clashed with Whedon, and that he even threatened her career when she objected to lines she felt were wrong for her character. Jason Momoa also spoke up, criticizing how Warner Brothers handled the investigation. Their support showed that Fisher wasn't alone. Serious problems had taken place on set and at the studio level, and it confirmed what many fans had suspected all along. Justice League wasn't simply a flawed film, it had been a deeply troubled production behind the scenes. As for Fisher, he became a voice for accountability, fully aware that speaking out in Hollywood could come at a steep personal cost. Whedon, for his part, denied the allegations. He dismissed Fisher's claims as false and later suggested that Fisher had delivered a poor performance, framing the conflict as the result of an inexperienced actor struggling with a demanding role. Whedon also argued that the changes to Justice League were made to fix what he saw as structural and tonal problems in Snyder's cut, not to erase Cyborg's significance. His defense, however, only deepened the divide. Fisher's accusations and Whedon's counterclaims painted radically different pictures of what really happened on set. The fallout was both immediate and long-lasting. The solo Cyborg film, first announced by Warner Brothers in 2014 with a 2020 release date, had already been languishing in development limbo. After Fisher's public clash with the studio, it was quietly abandoned altogether. His next major opportunity was supposed to come in The Flash, where he was set to co-star alongside Ezra Miller, but as tensions with Warner Brothers grew, his role was reduced and eventually removed entirely. Eventually, Fisher released a statement making it clear he would not reprise his role as Cyborg as long as Walter Hamada remained in charge of DC Films. In Fisher's words, Hamada had been the most dangerous kind of enabler, and Fisher refused to work under his leadership. This news was devastating for DC fans. Cyborg wasn't a side character. He had been introduced as one of the Justice League's cornerstones. DC had initially mapped out a future for him that included a solo film, recurring appearances in Justice League sequels, and major supporting roles in other projects. Beyond the business side, Cyborg carried enormous cultural weight. He was one of the few black superheroes to headline a blockbuster franchise. In his story, an athlete turned half-machine, grieving the loss of his mother, while struggling to reconcile his humanity with his new form, was a rare chance to bring depth and representation to the screen. Zack Snyder had always said Cyborg was the heart of the movie, and fans saw proof of that when Zack Snyder's Justice League was finally released on HBO Max after fan outcry. In that version, Victor's backstory was fully restored. His football career at Gotham University, his bond with his mother, the car crash that took her life and injured him, and his father sacrificing his own life to save the team, all of which deepened Victor's journey. The restored arc showed Cyborg as the emotional anchor Snyder had promised, and critics widely praised Fisher's performance as one of the best parts of the 4-hour cut. It confirmed what Fisher had been saying all along, that Whedon's theatrical version had gutted the character and erased his performance. But Fisher refused to disappear quietly. He used his platform to call for industry-wide change, insisting on accountability not only for directors like Joss Whedon, but also for executives like Jeff Johns, John Berg, and Walter Hamada, whom he accused of enabling or covering up misconduct. He argued that his fight wasn't just about Cyborg, it was about the culture of silence in Hollywood that allowed powerful figures to mistreat those with less power. Some fans and critics argue his decision to speak out cost him future roles, while others see it as proof of how difficult it is for young actors to confront a major Hollywood studio. The whole conflict came to show the wider problems of the DCEU, big ambitions undone by politics, and constant leadership struggles. But it was a turning point for Fisher. He lost the role of Cyborg, but he gained a reputation as one of the few actors willing to stand up for himself, even at great personal risk, not unlike a real-life character he once played on stage, Muhammad Ali. After Justice League, Fisher's career didn't end, but it moved in a different direction. While he never returned as Cyborg, he continued to take on meaningful work. He played Henry Hayes in True Detective, starred as Gene Mobley in Women of the Movement, and made his Broadway debut in The Piano Lesson the same year, later reprising the role in its film adaptation. He also reunited with Zack Snyder to appear in Rebel Moon. Meanwhile, Warner Brothers and DC struggled to find stability. After Justice League flopped at the box office, producer John Berg left, and Walter Hamada would eventually step down too. Under his watch, Snyder's long-term plans, including a Justice League sequel, were scrapped. Eventually, James Gunn and Peter Safran would take over DC Studios, as they planned to reboot the entire universe into a new DCU, effectively closing the chapter on the Snyder era. Cyborg was supposed to be the heart of the Justice League, but instead he became a symbol of everything that went wrong with the DCEU: studio interference, broken promises, and wasted potential. Ray Fisher lost a role that could have defined his career, and DC lost a hero who may have anchored its universe. Today, with the franchise rebooted and starting over, all that's left is the question of what might have been if Cyborg had truly been given his moment. Thanks for watching, everybody, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of Hollywood's untold stories and unmade movies.